Welcome to the Savvy Giving Gal podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Turilli-Smith, and today I have the honor of chatting with Bill Daniels. Bill is an award-winning personal trainer who's doing truly remarkable work in the world of fitness and pain relief. Bill has been featured in several major fitness publications like Shape, Self, Health Digest, and more. He is based in California's East Bay and has been transforming lives for over 22 years. What makes Bill's approach so unique is his focus on brain-based exercise. He uses neuro-centric training to help the brain reduce pain and improve how our body works and moves. But his journey into this fascinating field started with his own debilitating back injury that traditional methods couldn't fix. That experience shifted his entire career towards pain neuroscience, and he's spent decades helping people understand why their pain persists and how to change it. Recognized as one of the best of the East Bay trainers by Diablo magazine, Bill is also a husband and father of two and the author of the brand new book called Rewiring Pain, Core Principles for Brain-Based Pain Relief. In it, he answers questions like why do some people live in pain longer after a surgery has healed, and why can tiny paper cuts feel worse than major wounds? He believes the answer does not lie in the muscles or joints, but in the brain. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm really excited you're here too. So Bill, can you start by sharing your back injury and how it shaped your career?
Oh, yeah. So I was in my mid-20s and I'd already been working as a personal trainer. And I was new to California. I'd only been here, I guess, probably a couple of years at that point. And one of the ways I was making friends and meeting people was I was playing adult league softball. And I was on a co-ed team. And it got pretty competitive. And so we naturally started having practices when we weren't playing. And there was one weekend where we were just doing some batting practice and I was out in the outfield shagging some balls. And I noticed my back was feeling a little bit tight. And I literally had the thought, I'm going to lay down on the ground here and stretch real quick. And just as I thought that, somebody hit a ball my way. And competitive me was like, I'm not going to let that ball hit the ground. And I turned to run and go catch it. And as I turned, I stepped into a little ditch or a little hole and instantly felt my back just go. And I crumbled to the ground and that was it. Like I was done for the day. Teammates running over to me and helping me get up. And they were like, you know what, go home for the day. So I went home and I threw my stuff on the couch and my glove had intended to land on the dining room table. And I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment by myself at the time. So I went and I took a shower. When I came out of the shower, I went to pick up my glove and fell to the ground and could not get up. And I literally spent the entire night. I slept on the floor in my dining room that night.
Sad.
It was awful. It was so much pain. I couldn't get up. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't reach my phone. So I was just like, I'll lay here. I'll relax. I finally fell asleep, woke up in the morning and was able to get myself off the ground. And that started the close to 2-year journey of trying to heal my own pain. Prior to that, when I'd have clients that would come in with any kind of pain, I'd be like, this isn't the person I want to work with. You know, I'm here to work with people that want to work hard and get in good shape. And inevitably, everybody always has an injury of some sort. But rather than send them away, what ended up happening through this journey was I learned more about how pain works. And now that's primarily who I work with. I get people with all kinds of weird injuries or pain or all kinds of limitations. Vertigo sometimes. And with this different approach and knowing how the brain works, I'm able to do so much more to help people.
You know, I love a good why story because it really does spark a passion in someone when they can feel what their clients feel.
Yeah.
Helping other people transform their health and overcome pain is like what you have dedicated your life to. But how does this impact your own health and fitness in terms of it being self-love and self-kindness and what you do for yourself?
It's very easy, even as a personal trainer, to bypass your own workouts. You know, like you used to be a personal trainer and you understand how it goes. And it's very easy to give to everybody else all day and then say, well, I'm going to skip my own workout today. And I don't allow myself to do that anymore. This kind of keeps me accountable. I have to do these things to keep myself healthy. And if I'm going to ask other people to do it, I feel like I need to do it myself as well.
I think it's such a gift to give yourself, especially when health and fitness is such an important part of your life. Plus, I'm sure with the injury, you have to keep yourself limber and not hurt again and not getting hurt again. So can you talk about your TRACE method and break it down for us and how that impacts your clients?
Sure. So TRACE is the acronym I came up with. It's for, I used a bunch of different things as I was going through it, but tracking or taking a history is key. So the very first thing I do with people is I get a detailed history of what's happened to them in the past, what is causing them pain or discomfort, where are their limitations, and then diving deeper into, what happened before that thing happened and getting an idea, see if we can get a source of what happened. That's important for things like, I'll give you an example. I had a client once who had gotten into a car accident and had whiplash, and it would get better, it would get worse, it would get better, it would get worse. And what we ended up finding was when she got rear-ended, she was looking in her rearview mirror. So things like her eyes being up and to the right would trigger more pain, right? Would never put that together. But when you start thinking about where's the trauma, that's an important thing to understand. So you've got to really kind of do some detective work there. So for R, it's I wrote down as review, but it's really an assessment.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do with your assessment is you're going to see how can you move? Where are your limitations? If it's a shoulder injury, how high can you lift your arm before you have pain? If it's your back, can you bend over and touch your toes, or does it hurt when you go down? Does it hurt when you come back up? Figure out at what point is it that your brain is telling you no more. And then from there, you can use that as a baseline to see if what you're doing is working. Okay. Next is charting. So then you'll have a whole bunch of exercises or drills that you could do. In the book, I actually had a bunch of questionnaires, really one long questionnaire, but it's broken down by brain area. So there's, the peripheral nerves and the receptors and the cerebellum and the hippocampus and all the different brain areas. And with each of those questions, there's a list of questions for each area. And if you find that you're answering yes to a lot of those, that's probably an area you need to work on. And right next to it is a bunch of drills. So you try some of these, try one of the drills, then reassess yourself and see what's working. Does it make you better? Does it make it worse? Does it not change it at all? And that's where you want to chart that and keep track of that, because you'll want to have a list of exercises that you can go to that help relieve your pain. And then E is for evolve or just changing things as you get going, because something might help you now and you continue to do that drill for 2 or 3, 4 weeks. And then you're like, well, it's not really helping me as much now as it used to. But now you can go back to the other exercises or drills that made things feel worse, and they might start to make you feel better now.
That's fascinating.
Or you might find exercises that didn't change anything at all that make you feel better or potentially worse. But it's your brain's way of telling you, yes, this is a good stimulus. This is what I need. And keep doing it. Or, hey, don't do that at all. And I like to use the analogy of how this all works is like a kinked hose. There's a pathway. So if I'm trying to move my knee and it hurts in a certain way, it could be the receptors that feel the knee movement. That's the problem. It could be the nerve sending the signal to my spine. It could be something in my spine. It could be any of the brain areas that process all these sensations. And if you can get those brain areas more active with these certain drills, you can unkink the hose and allow that sensation to flow better, and then hopefully eliminate the pain.
Yeah, that's a really easy way to understand a very complex system.
Yeah.
Because it is a very complex system. So someone living with chronic pain now, listening to this episode, what's one thing you wish you had understood, or how they should understand about processing this type of pain? What do they need to know? So
the very first part of the book, I talk about my own story, but then I dive into the science of just knowing how pain works at a neurological level has been shown in numerous studies that to actually reduce your pain. So the common thing is you feel like, hey, if something hurts, there must be something broken there. And that's not always the case. And if something hurts, the amount it hurts doesn't necessarily mean how much damage there could be there either.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to your intro when you mentioned the paper cut versus a wound, paper cuts hurt usually.
Really bad.
And they're tiny, right?
They hurt so bad.
Yeah. But have you ever done anything like where you're out working in the garden or something and then you look down at your leg and you're like, what? I'm bleeding like crazy. Like how did this happen? I didn't even feel it happen.
Yes.
Right. So it's first of all, an understanding that tissue damage does not equal pain, and that you've got to take that and separate those two entities. Mm-hmm. If there's damage, we can fix that. If there's pain, we have to dive in a little bit deeper and figure out what's happening. And when you understand what you're trying to do, the threat of pain becomes a lot less.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the threat of pain, because I know anytime I've been in pain, it's like scary and it feels like a threat to everything that you're doing. So how do you get people past that feeling of my body's threatened, I'm threatened, like I need to break down and get to this pain reducing place?
Sure. I think the thing I tell people the most is your brain is in charge of everything, right? If you think about it, and I talk about this in the book, this is one of my own personal story, but as I'm going through my own recovery process from my back injury, and I'm trying to figure out, why isn't physical therapy helping? Why doesn't acupuncture help? Why isn't chiropractic helping? Like nothing's helping. And I'm in the shower one day thinking, okay, I'm a skeleton that moves. And that skeleton only moves when the muscles contract and relax. And the muscles don't decide to contract and relax. They get that signal from the nerve. And the nerve doesn't decide it. It gets that signal from the brain. The brain's in charge of everything, right? So you've got to take the time to really think, okay, if I can get the brain to work properly, I can control my pain.
Okay, so once you come to grips with that, okay, and your client comes to you, where do you start? Other than with the trace, obviously you're going to start with the assessment and all those things, but how do you get them to buy into this?
That's a great question. Yeah. The simplest way is I explain to them, kind of based on what I was just telling you, is if your brain thinks something's not safe, it's going to find a way to not let you do it. Okay. And this can come in a number of ways. Most commonly, it's pain, right? So if your brain says, I don't think that's safe, that hurts, go sit down. You might also experience extreme stiffness. You might experience weakness. You might experience nausea. So for me, years ago, I used to have a slight vestibular issue. So I didn't have vertigo. I didn't have any balance issues, but my vestibular system wasn't operating as well as it should. If I got on a treadmill, my brain would go, whoa, your eyes are telling me we're just standing here. Your vestibular system says we're bouncing up and down, and your body's telling me that we're running like crazy. Oh boy. And until we can get all this figured out and I really know what's happening, I'm going to tell you you're going to throw up. And I wouldn't actually get that sick, but it would feel nauseous. So I'd get off the treadmill because it made me feel terrible. And that was my brain's way of saying, it's not safe. Don't do this. I don't know what's happening.
Right.
So I use that story as an example. And then oftentimes, if I can just get people to give me their history. And with that in mind, and then we figure out a drill or two that makes them improve just a little bit, then they start to see, this does work. And it works very quickly most of the time.
Yes. Well, I mean, just going back many years ago to when I was a personal trainer with you, I think that trust with a client is huge, because when they come to you at first, especially in such a niche area that you're in now, I'm sure they're really skeptical. About whether you can help them over all these professionals. And you've done such a good job of doing that. So how do you build that trust? Just one exercise at a time?
That's all you can do. And, you have the conversations. I think the most important thing that I've learned over the years is not to just force what I'm doing on them, but to make sure that my clients feel like they're heard. Let them talk it out, and then have a normal conversation with them. And then I'll say to them, rather than force it on them, I'll say, well, here's what I'm seeing, and this is how I think it works. And I kind of explain the science in a very layman's terms and say, would you be open to trying this? And then that's how we get to that first drill. And most of the time, we at least get a little bit of improvement with that first drill. If we don't, we don't lie about it. We just say,
Right.
okay, let's try something else.
Accept it.
But we keep diving deeper into the history and we keep trying different things. And I don't think I've ever had a situation where we haven't found something that's helped.
Yes.
As long as they're open to trying different things.
Right. I think you have to be really open-minded when so many things have failed. Because usually when someone's dealing with chronic pain, they've, done a lot of different things before they get to you, I can imagine.
Yes.
So,
and it's often that they'll say, oh, my foot hurts. And I'm like, oh, let's try this thing with your eyes. And they're like, it's not my eyes that are the problem. And you're like, just let me try it. And they do it. And they're like, oh, it does start to help.
Yes.
So it's once you start to get that buy-in a little bit, it starts to snowball after that.
Easy. Yeah. So what's one thing you wish that the fitness industry would kind of change in terms of its approach to pain and weight loss?
That's a great question. And I feel like we could talk about that for hours. I think the barrier to entry into the industry for a personal trainer needs to be a little bit higher. If somebody wanted to become a personal trainer by Monday, they could go take a class this weekend.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean they know anything. I think there needs to be some level of education that really goes into it, or at least some kind of mentoring program for those younger trainers. And I think it's important too to look at which path you want to go. Do you want to work with athletes that are trying to get to the Olympics? Do you want to work with people in pain? Do you want to work with the weekend warrior or pregnant women or whatever it might be, and get really focus in on that? Because I think more education and specialty on those particular things, like a doctor would do in medicine, would really help clients and gym members go a long way.
I also think it makes the trainer feel more successful. I know it just naturally, I was pregnant when I was a trainer, and I naturally had pregnant clients because they would watch me train.
Right.
I would learn about training my own body at the time. And I really could make a real difference with those clients versus someone that was like a big bodybuilding guy who I never took those clients.
Right.
Because I didn't have enough knowledge to be able to.
And I remember sending you pregnant clients. I was like, I'm not working with this person. This is not my.
Because it's scary. You don't. I mean, you're. But
I knew you knew what you were doing. So like that's the thing is you want to get people to somebody that they can work with that can take care of them.
That's right. And so I do agree with you in terms of like the education around helping the trainers be the best that they can be, And do you feel that chronic pain does affect people's weight, and how do you get them on like a nutrition program in concert with pain management? Yeah,
absolutely. It definitely plays a role. Again, if your brain is constantly thinking it's under threat, whether you're feeling pain or you're just having limited movement or whatever, you're going to have a harder time making the progress, if you're trying to lose weight or whatever. So it's important to kind of unkink the hose so that the nervous system works more efficiently and it's not going to hold on to stress. There's actually a whole chapter in the book all about stress and how that impacts. Primarily in this book, it talks about how it can exacerbate your pain, but they can impact you trying to lose weight. Yes. It can impact you trying to gain muscle, anything you're trying to do fitness wise. So the stress piece is a big part of it. The second part of your question, you said,
in terms of like, how pain inhibits their weight loss process.
Yeah.
So I honestly think that stress of being in pain is huge. And then stress in general, if you could speak to that just a little bit more, because I actually do believe that stress has a huge impact on our health. Yeah. And so maybe you could just speak to what you've seen in terms of that.
So I talk about in the book, a system, or I guess a concept called the threat bucket. And I got that through, one of the curriculums I've been through called Z Health, and Dr. Eric Cobb was the one that came up with this. And basically the concept is you have a bucket, and every day all these different things are contributing to this bucket, and what's filling in the bucket is your stress. So it can be your nutrition, it can be your exercise, it can be your sleep, it can be your the emotions around your relationships, it can be pain that you're experiencing. Anything you can think of that could contribute to stress is adding into the bucket, right? Sitting in traffic on your way to work, whatever. If your bucket gets too full, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So you have an emergency valve at some point, a little spigot on the side of the bucket. And that when the stress level gets to that point, the spigot starts to spill out. And what it's spilling out now is a pain response. It's that point where your brain and your nervous system are saying, look, we can't keep doing this. And I know that I can reference the pain you've been having and make it a little louder and get you to stop doing what you're doing. Go sit in your room, turn off the lights, go to bed, you know, whatever it's going to be, so that you can bring the stress levels back down. And then you can allow your body to heal.
Do you, when you're working with clients, do you add stress management tactics? Like, do you give them tools, or is that not part of really what you're...
I'll talk it out with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of where listening comes in, you know, and I have found working with people for the last 22 years that if you tell them what to do, they're not going to do it. But if you can make them come up with the idea themselves, or kind of guide them in that direction, and it's more their idea. And same thing with the nutrition. Like if you can get them going that way with nutrition, they're more apt to do and make those changes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember. I'm like, you should do this, this, and this. And then they'd never do it. And then I'm like, okay, what do you think you should do? And they'd say this, this, and this. And then they would do it. So
yeah, there was actually a study that was done with, they had a bunch of rats in 2 different cages. And they trained these rats to push the button to turn on the wheel. And these rats would run on this wheel all day. And then after a certain amount of time, they would take the button out of the cage of one of the rats. And they would turn the button on themselves, the person running the study, and turn the wheel on. And at that point, the rats didn't want to run on the wheel anymore. And to the point they died. Like, right. They're just like, don't tell me when I can exercise. I'll exercise when I want to exercise. And if you're going to tell me when to do it, I'm not going to do it.
Yes.
Right. So it's like, I think there's a lot of that with human mentality subconsciously.
Yeah.
I think when we're told, hey, you have to do this, we're like, why?
Right.
But if they say, hey, I think I should try this, you're like, okay, let's try it.
That sounds fantastic.
And that's, and that's the way I approach those conversations with all of my clients, whether it's stress or nutrition or even exercise on their own, is, okay, what do you think will help you? They come up with the idea. Maybe I help them refine it a little bit, but they kind of have to have the initiative first. Yeah,
the buy-in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. You really do have to have buy-in. You can't be just told you have to do it. Like, especially with health and fitness and wellness, you know, it's very personal.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who is told you just have to live with pain? Like, you know, if everything has been, they haven't come to you yet and all these other professionals have given up. Do you feel that there's ever a time where someone's just going to live with pain?
Only if they want to, because I think it's important that you just keep trying different things. Not everything works for everybody. You know, there's not one thing in this world that is a blanket, yes, that's going to be good for you. Everybody's got a different nervous system. Everyone's got a different body, different history. And there's always something that can help. And sometimes it takes more time than we would want it to, but there's always something that can help. This book is really, really dense and there's a lot of things in here.
It's fantastic. I read it, but you really, I mean, it's very thorough.
Yeah.
It's very
thorough. And I would say that anybody who's in chronic pain, there's something in here that will help. You just have to kind of find it because there's a lot in here. But there's things, if you kind of follow the path, it'll set you on, like fill out the questionnaire, get an idea of where you are, and just see if some of those drills help you.
Right.
And sometimes you have to refine them a little bit, but this is at least enough to get you started.
Yes.
And hopefully help you find 1 or 2 things that make you feel at least a little bit better initially.
Right. And I guess that's the goal, right? Is like just small steps towards feeling better.
Yeah.
And then you'll do bigger steps once you feel a little bit better, right?
I think one of the biggest problems we have with like traditional therapies is, you know, if your left elbow hurts, you go to physical therapy or chiropractor or anybody, they're going to go, okay, let's work on your left elbow. But I would say more often than not, you don't work on the site that hurts. You do something else. And there's a system to that. We talk about that in here.
Yeah.
But sometimes maybe you work on the left knee if it's the right elbow, or, you know, there's a whole mirror image chapter in here where we talk about working on opposite joints. So there's all kinds of weird stuff that can play a role when not working on the joint can allow it to rest, Allow your brain to go, okay, it's safe now to move that because we did something else over here. It's a really weird concept for people to understand.
Yeah.
But it works, and I've seen it hundreds of times.
Yes. When I read about that in the book, and I was a trainer and I didn't realize that at all.
Yeah.
I think your approach is very different in that way.
Yeah.
Because I had never heard really that before. Like usually, even when I've been in pain before, you go and you have the area worked on.
Right.
So can you speak to how you got to that point and realize that this was really how pain should be handled?
It was just learning about the brain and the education, going through the things that I'd researched, going through the courses that I took with both Z Health and applied neurology, another group out of Europe. So there's so much stuff and it can get really complex. So if you just take one piece of it at a time and go, how does this work? And then I started playing with some of these things, and I had my own injuries and things, and I was shocked when some of these things worked.
Yeah.
And
it's exciting.
So it is. And so that's kind of how I ended up kind of falling on that. And it worked so well that I wanted to teach other people, and I started using it with clients, and it would work with them. And I'm like, okay, this is real.
Yeah. It really is fascinating. And I mean, if you can even solve a little bit of someone's pain, I mean, that is huge because that affects their whole life, not just the joint that hurts or their back that hurts. It affects everything they do with their kids and in their life. And I mean, it has a ripple effect for sure. Yeah. So as our time comes to an end, I always ask my guests these 3 questions. So I'm going to ask you, what does it mean to you to be a community change maker?
I think it's important to leave the place better than when you got there, you know? So I like to help people. I don't think anybody should live in pain. And if I can help people get out of pain or at least reduce their pain so they can go do the things that they want to do, and I think that just makes everybody happier, makes the community a better place.
Yeah. When I worked with Bill many years ago, I think it might even be 20 years ago now, you always left the gym, your clients, like better than when they first came in. Like that you definitely have that aura about you. And I think that's why you've been so successful in all these years and now in your endeavors with chronic pain, because you really do try to live by that every day. So I can appreciate that. How has helping others impacted your own well-being?
Seeing other people heal has been, it's so rewarding for me. When somebody else, and when I say heal, I don't mean like tissue damage, but like they're in pain.
Yes.
And now they're not in pain.
Right.
That's the most rewarding thing for me. I don't go searching for accolades or anything, but like every now and then you have a client saying like, you know, you changed my life. And that's the most rewarding thing for me is when I can help somebody else actually get back to where they want to be.
Yeah. And you've gotten some really good accolades though from it.
I have.
Which is always nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always nice. Okay. And lastly, what's one small act of kindness our listeners can incorporate in their daily lives?
I think just understanding where people are. You know, I think there's, especially in today's, you know, political climate and the way that everything is, I just think everyone's so at each other.
Yeah.
And if I really believe that everyone's screaming their opinion and no one's listening to anybody else's. And so taking the time to listen to other people's points of view, not necessarily politics, but just where they are in life, and being more understanding of what they're going through and sympathetic of that. And we can come together that way. And I think that's really what we need.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great one. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and where they can buy the book?
Sure. The book is on Amazon. You just look for Rewiring Pain by Bill Daniels. There are several other books with the same name.
Okay.
But mine is the light blue teal cover.
Okay.
You can find that on Amazon. You can follow me on Instagram at Beyond Fitness.
Okay.
I am also on Facebook under my name, Bill Daniels. Okay. And I'm on YouTube as Beyond Fitness.
Okay, great. Bill, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
I loved it.
Coming to fill up my cup.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Giving Gal podcast. I hope it sparks a desire in you to dedicate even a small slice of your life to uplifting others. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend and hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Instagram at SavvyGivingGal or visit my website, SavvyGivingGal.com. Remember, when we give together as a community, we not only change the lives around us, we strengthen our own health and well-being too.